I found out my fiancée was sleeping with my brother. They stole $25,000 from our house fund while my parents actively helped them lie. This is a story of how I took my revenge at Thanksgiving dinner. My name is Elias Vance, and I'm an architect. I don't just design buildings, I design futures. I believe in blueprints, in solid foundations, in the predictable and beautiful physics that holds a roof over your head. For 5 years, my own master blueprint was a life with Chloe. I remember the night I showed her the final render. We were in our small apartment, the city lights of Boston twinkling below. On my laptop screen was our future, rendered in perfect 3D. A modern, two-story home with a wide porch and a backyard big enough for a dog we hadn't gotten yet. "See this, right here?" I said, my voice humming with an excitement I usually reserved for a perfectly balanced cantilever. I zoomed in on the master bedroom. This window faces east. We get the morning sun every single day. Chloe leaned her head on my shoulder, her soft brown hair smelling like lavender and clean linen. "It's perfect, Eli. It's us." But as she said it, I saw a flicker in her eyes, a shadow as brief as a cloud passing over the sun. I dismissed it. Nerves. The sheer scale of it all. We had been saving for 2 years, pouring every spare dollar into our house fund. We were almost there. My love for her was its own kind of structure, built on a foundation of absolute trust. I thought it was unshakable. I remembered years ago when a bad case of pneumonia had laid me out for 2 weeks. I was a wreck, delirious with fever. Chloe never left my side. She bathed my forehead with cool cloths, spoon-fed me soup, and read to me until her voice was hoarse. I drifted off to sleep one night, her hand in mine, and thought with a clarity that cut through the fever. This is my foundation. This is home. She wasn't just the woman I loved. She was the cornerstone of my entire world. And you don't question your cornerstone. My family, on the other hand, was a structure I was constantly trying to reinforce. My parents, Dennis and Mary, were good people who'd had a hard life. My father's back was shot from 40 years in construction, and my mother's smile was permanently tired from decades of waitressing. They were proud of me, the stable son, the architect, but their heart, their worry, their entire emotional center of gravity orbited my younger brother, Liam. Liam was 27, 3 years younger than me, and lived in a state of charming, chaotic failure. He was the golden child who'd never tarnished because he'd never stayed in one place long enough to get dusty. Jobs, apartments, relationships, they were all temporary stops on his grand, aimless journey. The latest stop was my parents' couch. He'd been let go from his sales job, another in a long line of them. I came over for dinner one Sunday, and the air was thick with their anxiety. Liam was complaining about his car, making a funny noise, and my mother was looking at him with the same boundless pity she'd had when he'd scraped his knee at age 6. As I was leaving, I slipped my mom $200. It was our ritual. "Thank you, Elias," she whispered, her hand closing around the bills as if they were secret. She looked over her shoulder toward the living room where Liam was channel surfing. "You're always the rock of this family. I don't know what we'd do without you to fix things." The words were meant as a compliment, but they landed with a strange weight. A rock is something you rely on, but it's also something you take for granted. A fixer is someone you call when something is broken. I was beginning to realize that in my family's eyes, something was always broken, and it was always my job to fix it. I drove home feeling the familiar, weary blend of responsibility and resentment, never suspecting that the biggest fracture was silently spreading through the foundation of my own home. The first signs of trouble were small. So small, you'd have to be looking for them. And I wasn't. Chloe started having unexpected expenses. Her car needed a new transmission. A close friend from nursing school was short on rent. The excuses were always plausible, always delivered with a furrowed brow and a sigh of frustration that made me feel like a heel for even questioning it. "Don't worry about the house fund this month, honey," I'd say. "I'll cover it. I'm picking up a freelance project anyway." I was the fixer, after all. Then there were her new hobbies. One night, I found her glued to her laptop, her face illuminated by the green glow of a virtual poker table. "Since when are you into poker?" I asked, laughing. "Oh, it's just a silly game," she said, quickly closing the tab. "A few of the girls from work play to de-stress. I only play with fake money, of course." The leaks were small, but they were starting to pool. Our joint savings account, which had been climbing with such steady momentum, had stalled. When I brought it up gently, Chloe's stress seemed so genuine. She talked about the long hours at the hospital, the emotional toll of her job. I felt guilty for adding to her burden. So I worked harder, took on more projects, determined to patch the holes myself. My best friend and colleague, Marcus, saw it from the outside. We were grabbing a beer after work, and I was complaining about being tired. "You're working too much, man," he said, taking a sip of his IPA. "Is Chloe pulling her weight with this house thing?" "Of course," I said, a little too defensively. "She's just been hit with a lot of stuff lately." Marcus looked at me, his gaze level. "Just be careful, Eli. I've seen guys like your brother before. They're like black holes for money and drama. Don't let him and his problems become your problems. Or worse, her problems." I told him he didn't understand family. But as I drove home, his words echoed in my head. Another small, hairline crack in the plaster of my perfect life. The feeling that something was wrong began to solidify, changing from a vague unease into a cold, hard knot in my stomach. Chloe was becoming more distant, a planet slowly drifting out of my orbit. The late nights at the hospital became more frequent. She'd come home exhausted, smelling faintly of perfume I didn't recognize, and fall asleep before I could even ask about her day. One Tuesday, I was leaving the office early. I had just landed a major commission, and I wanted to surprise her. I called a florist and ordered a huge bouquet of her favorite flowers, white lilies, to be delivered to her ward at the hospital. A little celebration, I told the florist, a stupid, happy grin on my face. An hour later, my phone rang. It was the florist. "Hi, Mr. Vance. We're having a bit of trouble delivering your order. The nurses at the front desk say Chloe Vance isn't on shift today. They said she actually took the whole week off." The grin on my face melted. "What? No, that can't be right. She's working a double. She told me this morning." "Well, sir," they were quite sure. "They said she hasn't been in since last Thursday." I hung up the phone, my hand trembling slightly. "It's a mistake," I told myself. "A scheduling mix-up. There's a logical explanation. There's always a logical explanation." When she got home that night, long after midnight, I was waiting on the couch. "Tough shift?" I asked, my voice strained. "The worst," she sighed, dropping her purse. "Total chaos." I decided to confront her. Not with anger, but with a question. "That's weird. I tried to send you flowers today, and the hospital said you'd taken the week off." The color drained from her face. For a split second, I saw pure, animal panic in her eyes. But then, it was gone, replaced by a mask of indignant fury. "Are you serious?" she snapped, her voice rising. "You're checking up on me? After everything I do, you think I'm lying to you?" I covered a shift for Sarah at the downtown clinic. It's not part of the main hospital system. "My God, Elias, I can't believe you don't trust me." She stormed into the bedroom, slamming the door. I sat there in the silence, the force of her anger pushing me back. And I did what I'd always done. I doubted myself. I felt ashamed. Maybe I'm becoming a controlling monster, I thought. Maybe the stress is getting to me. I went to the bedroom door and apologized. She eventually let me in, and we made up. But as I lay in bed next to her that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just been masterfully outplayed. The doubt didn't go away. It festered. I started to feel like a stranger in my own life, a detective in a case where I was also the primary victim. I knew I couldn't trust her words anymore. I needed something tangible, something real. I needed a blueprint of the truth. The answer came on a Saturday morning. Chloe was out, supposedly at a yoga class. I decided to do a deep clean of the car we shared, a practical task to quiet the screaming in my head. As I was vacuuming under the passenger seat, my fingers brushed against a piece of folded paper. I pulled it out. It was a receipt. My heart began to beat a slow, heavy drum against my ribs. It was from a place called the Overlook Inn, a fancy, romantic restaurant about 2 hours up the coast. The date on the receipt was from 3 weeks prior, a Tuesday. The same Tuesday She had supposedly worked that double shift at the downtown clinic. I scanned the items. Pan-seared scallops, a bottle of expensive Cabernet Sauvignon, a New York strip steak, and below it, a line that made the air leave my lungs. Table for two. The total was over $300. Paid in cash. I sat there on the garage floor, the vacuum cleaner humming next to me, the flimsy piece of paper shaking in my hand. This wasn't a mix-up. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was proof. My mind, the architect's mind, started working. I needed to be sure. I went inside, my movements stiff and robotic. I found the number for the overlook and online. I dialed, my throat tight. A cheerful woman answered. I forced my voice to be casual. Hi, I was just calling to ask. My fiancée and I had a wonderful dinner there a few weeks ago on a Tuesday. I think it was the 14th. I just wanted to know if you were still running that romantic getaway special you had going on. I was making it up, a complete shot in the dark. Oh yes, the woman chirped. Our Tuesday for two special. It's very popular with couples looking for a quiet night away. Were you the couple at the corner table with the lovely view? Yes, I lied, my voice a dead monotone. That was us. I hung up. There it was. The undeniable, gut-wrenching truth. She hadn't been working. She had been on a romantic getaway for two. And I knew, with a certainty that felt like a physical blow, who had been sitting across the table from her. Thanksgiving arrived a week later, like a cruel joke. The holiday of gratitude, of family, of togetherness. We went to my parents' house, and the air was thick with the smell of roasting turkey and unspoken lies. I was quiet. I helped my dad set up an extra table, my movements precise and controlled. Chloe was a whirlwind of fake cheer, helping my mom in the kitchen, laughing a little too loudly at Liam's stupid jokes. He was holding court in the living room, looking smug and relaxed in a new cashmere sweater that I knew he couldn't afford. They moved around each other with an easy intimacy, a shared glance here, a light touch on the arm there. To an outsider, it might look like friendly future in-laws. To me, it was a finely choreographed ballet of betrayal. We all sat down to dinner. My father said a clumsy grace, thanking God for family and for health. I felt a cold rage bubble up inside me. So profound it was almost serene. I waited until everyone had their plates full. My mother was asking Chloe about wedding plans, and Chloe was talking about flower arrangements, her voice full of breathless excitement. I took a slow sip of water, set the glass down with a soft click, and looked directly at my brother. That's a beautiful watch, Liam, I said. My voice was calm, almost conversational, but it cut through the room like a shard of glass. Everyone froze. It's the exact model I showed Chloe I wanted for our anniversary. I continued, my eyes locked on his. The silence that followed was deafening. It was more powerful than any shouting match could ever be. I saw it all in that one, stretched-out second of absolute stillness. The way Chloe's fork clattered against her plate. The way Liam's face went from smug to sheet white. The way my mother's hand flew to her mouth, and my father's eyes darted between them, wide with panic. They didn't even try to deny it. Their guilt was a physical presence at the table, a foul odor rising from the feast. Liam stammered something about a lucky find at a pawn shop. Chloe started talking frantically about how she'd found a similar one for him. A total coincidence. My mother jumped in. Elias, please, she said, her voice a strained whisper. Not today. It's Thanksgiving. I didn't say another word. I just looked at each of them one by one. I held their gaze until they looked away, defeated. I saw the whole conspiracy laid bare in their panicked, shifty eyes. They were all in on it. They were a team, and I was the opposition. The rest of the dinner was a pantomime. We passed the mashed potatoes and carved the turkey in near silence. The charade of the happy family had been shattered. They knew that I knew. And as I sat there, a ghost of my own family's table, I wasn't planning my revenge. I was designing in demolition. The days after Thanksgiving were cold and clear. I moved with the detached precision of a man on a mission. The grief was there, a vast, frozen ocean beneath the surface, but I couldn't afford to feel it yet. Feeling was a luxury. Action was a necessity. I told Chloe I needed to take the lead on the final mortgage application and needed all her financial statements in order. It was the perfect excuse. She handed over her passwords and bank details without a second thought, too scared to question me after the incident at dinner. For 3 nights, after she was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table, the glow of the laptop my only companion. I wasn't just a heartbroken fiancé anymore. I was a forensic accountant of my own ruin. I started with the joint house fund. The numbers were worse than I thought. Nearly $15,000 was gone. But it wasn't just a few large withdrawals. It was a death by 1,000 cuts. Hundreds of small transactions. ATM withdrawals from machines, just blocks from Liam's apartment. Venmo payments to accounts with cryptic notes like "for last night" and "game time." Then I dug into her personal credit card statements. The overlooking was there, just as the receipt had shown. But there was so much more. Flights to Atlantic City. Hotel rooms booked under her name. And then I found the source of the rot. Charge after charge to websites I'd never heard of: Galaxy Bet, Royal Flush Online, Winner's Circle Casino. Thousands of dollars flushed into the digital ether. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about Liam. This wasn't a simple, sordid affair. Chloe had a secret life, a secret addiction, and she had used our future as her personal ATM to fund it. Liam wasn't the mastermind. He was just a parasite feeding on the chaos she created. The final piece of the puzzle, the one that turned my grief to solid, unmovable granite, was a single transaction in her checking account. It was a transfer from 3 months ago. $2,000 sent to Dennis Vance. Memo: car repair loan. I remember that month. My dad's truck had broken down. He told me he had to borrow money from a friend to get it fixed. He'd looked me in the eye and lied. He hadn't just known about the betrayal. He'd taken a cut. He'd accepted a payment sourced from the stolen blueprint of my life. I spent an hour printing everything: the bank statements, the credit card bills, the Venmo history. I highlighted the damning transactions in yellow, the way a lawyer would prepare exhibits for a trial. I organized them into 4 neat piles on the table. One for Chloe, one for Liam, one for my mother, whose name appeared on several smaller transfers, and one for my father. The stack of papers was an inch thick. It was a testament to their lies, a detailed architectural plan of their deceit. It was cold, hard, and undeniable, and it was going to be my weapon. I sent a single group text message on Friday morning. We need to have a final meeting about the house finances. My apartment. Sunday, 2 p.m. It's important. They all agreed to come. I imagined their own private text chain lighting up with panicked speculation. What does he know? What is he going to do? Let them sweat. On Sunday, at 1:55 p.m., I was ready. The apartment was spotless. I had placed 4 chairs in the living room, 2 facing the couch, like a formal interrogation. On the coffee table in the center, I placed a thick file of printed evidence. They arrived together, a united front of guilty defendants. Chloe tried to smile at me, a pathetic, trembling thing. Liam swaggered in with a false bravado that didn't reach his eyes. My parents looked old and terrified. They sat down, their eyes glued to the file on the table. I let the silence stretch, letting their anxiety build. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I sat down calmly in the chair opposite them. I believe you all have some things to explain, I said, my voice even. Chloe started first, the practiced tears welling up. Eli, baby, I know you're upset about Thanksgiving. I held up a hand, stopping her. I reached forward, took the top page from her pile, a credit card statement showing a $500 charge to an online casino, and slid it across the table. Explain this one, I said. She stared at it, speechless. Liam jumped in, his voice full of bluster. What is this, man? You're going through her stuff? That's messed up. I ignored him. I took the top page from his pile, a Venmo history showing dozens of payments from Chloe, and slid in front of him. Explain this, I repeated, my voice flat. He looked at it, his face turning a blotchy red. Then I turned to my parents. My mother began to sob softly. Elias, we never wanted to hurt you. Liam was in a tough spot. I slid her pile across the table. Then my father's, with the $2,000 transfer highlighted in yellow. Explain, I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper, but carried the weight of a death sentence. And then the dam broke. The lies, The excuses, the blame shifting all came pouring out. Chloe confessed through sobs about the gambling, saying it started small but spun out of control. Liam yelled that I'd always had it easy, that I didn't know what it was like to struggle. My father tried to justify the money, saying they were desperate. My mother just kept repeating, "We're your family. We love you." I listened to it all, my face a mask of stone. The architect in me saw it for what it was, a catastrophic structural failure. The foundation was rotten to the core. There was nothing left to salvage. When the storm of their excuses finally subsided, leaving a wake of sniffles and heavy breathing, I stood up. The time for listening was over. "I've heard enough," I said, and the room fell silent again. I looked at Chloe first. The tears on her face didn't move me. They were just another currency she was used to spending. "The engagement is over," I said. The words were small, but they landed with the finality of a gavel strike. "Your things will be in boxes on the curb tomorrow morning. I suggest you find somewhere else to be tonight. Our contract is terminated." Her face crumpled, a fresh wave of performative grief washing over her. I felt nothing. Then I turned to Liam. He was staring at the floor, the fake bravado gone, replaced by the sullen petulance of a child who'd finally been caught. "You're not my brother," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "A brother doesn't do what you did. I don't know what you are, but you are no longer a part of my life. Don't ever speak to me again." Finally, I faced my parents. My mother was openly weeping, reaching a hand out to me. My father just sat there, a broken old man. "You had a choice," I told them, my voice hard but steady. "You had two sons, one who was building a life and one who was setting fires. And you chose to protect the arsonist. You chose to help him burn my future to the ground. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." I walked to the front door and opened it. "Get out of my apartment." They stumbled out, a procession of ghosts, leaving the file of their sins behind on my coffee table. I closed the door, locked the deadbolt, and leaned my forehead against the cool wood. I didn't cry. I just breathed. For the first time in months, I felt like I could actually get enough air into my lungs. The demolition was complete. The site was clear. A week later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Izzy, Chloe's cousin, who I'd met a few times. She'd heard what happened. "I'm so sorry, Elias," she said, her voice filled with genuine sympathy. "I should have said something sooner. Chloe, she's done this before. Not the brother thing, but the money, the lies. She has a problem, a deep one. It's been going on since she was a teenager." Her words didn't bring me comfort, but they brought me a strange, grim clarity. I hadn't just been in love with a woman. I had been in love with a character, a carefully constructed facade she designed for me. The real Chloe was a stranger, and I was finally, terribly, free of her. 6 months passed. 6 months of silence. I moved to a new apartment in a different part of the city, a clean, minimalist space that held no memories. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the clean lines and logical progressions of my blueprints. I started going to therapy. I started running, pounding the pavement every morning until my legs burned and my head was clear. I was rebuilding slowly from the foundation up. The silence, of course, couldn't last. The echoes of my former life started trying to find me. The first attempt came through Marcus. "Your mom called me," he said, looking uncomfortable. We were at the office, reviewing a structural plan. She was crying. Said they're going to lose the house. That your dad's health is getting worse. I didn't look up from the blueprint. "Okay, that's it? Just okay?" he asked. "Eli," she said, "you're the only one who can fix this." I finally met his eyes, my gaze steady. "I'm an architect, Marcus, not a demolition crew. Their mess is their own to clean up." The next wave came from Liam. He left rambling, tearful voicemails on my work phone, somehow bypassing the front desk. They were pathetic monologues of self-pity and blame, ending with vague threats of self-harm. I didn't believe them for a second. It was just another form of manipulation. I forwarded the audio files to my aunt with a simple text. "Your nephew is having a breakdown. He needs professional help. That help will not be coming from me." The messages stopped. For a while. The final straw came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was heading out of my office building, my mind on a difficult trust design when I saw her. Chloe. She was standing across the street, looking thin and pale. When she saw me, she started walking toward me, her face a desperate plea. I felt a surge of ice-cold adrenaline. This was my space, my new life. She was not welcome here. I turned around without a word, walked back into the lobby, and took the elevator back up to my office. I watched from my window as she stood in the rain for 10 minutes before finally giving up and walking away. That was the moment I knew I needed to build a wall. A real one. A legal one. The next day, I sat in a lawyer's office. I didn't tell her the whole emotional saga. I just laid out the facts, the timeline, the harassment. I want to send a formal cease and desist letter, I said, to all 4 of them. I want it to be clear that any further contact, in any form, will be met with legal action. The lawyer, a sharp woman in her 50s, nodded. We can do that. It will be clear, concise, and legally binding. A week later, 4 certified letters were sent. It wasn't a dramatic, emotional letter written in the heat of the moment. It was a cold, legal document. It was a blueprint for a boundary. It was the final, load-bearing wall of my new life, and it was non-negotiable. It was my final correspondence. It's morning. The sun is just starting to filter through the large window of my new office, the one that overlooks the harbor. It's quiet, save for the distant cry of a seagull and the low hum of my computer. On the screen isn't a sprawling family home. It's a new project, a personal one. It's a small, modern cabin designed for one. All glass and cedar and clean, simple lines, nestled in a patch of woods I bought with what was left of my savings. There's a single bedroom, a small but efficient kitchen, and a large deck with 1 chair. I zoom in on a detail I was working on late last night. A massive picture window in the main living area, designed to frame the forest outside like a living painting. For the first time, I think about the word foundation without a trace of bitterness. My old life, my old blueprint, it wasn't a failure. It was a stress test. It showed me where the weak points were. It showed me what happens when you build on unstable ground. They didn't destroy my foundation. They just revealed it was built on the wrong land. I take a sip of my coffee. The sun hits my face. I'm not healed, not completely. Some structures are too complex to be repaired overnight. But I am free. The site is clear, the ground is solid, and the plans are my own. I click save, stand up, and walk toward the window, ready to watch the day begin.